This week, we will talk about research ethics. If you Google the word ethics, you will see that it means morality. Or according to the Webster Dictionary, ethics can also mean something that conforms to the standard of conduct of a given group or profession. When we talk about ethics in social science research, we mean the proper or the improper way to do research. People start focusing more on ethics when they do research because of what happened during World War II, where the Nazis and the Japanese researchers, they do some kind of inappropriate experimentation on their prisoners of war. And people start to focus more on ethics when they do research due to the famous Tuskegee Cephalus experiments. As researchers, we are obligated to our participants. We have to make sure that participation is always voluntary, and no one should be coerced or forced to participate in our study. Because of that, usually, sometimes even though researchers they give incentive, cash incentive or gift cards, their amount are always reasonable. It's not too low or it's not too high. It's just a gratitude to participants for their participation. Like in my previous grants, usually I have about 300 to 400 participants in my study, and I give Walmart gift cards about $25 to each participant. And researchers should not tell participants that you will get a cash reward, a gift card, if you fill out this survey. It's unethical. And researchers should also guarantee no harm to participants. This harm can include bodily harm. Participants should not be injured or harmed in any way when they participate in your survey. And researchers should do their best to minimize psychological harm to their research subjects or other unpleasant effects, like when the study involved respondents having to report their previous deviant behaviors, and this can trigger some negative psychological effects. So it is the researcher's responsibility to minimize these psychological harm or unpleasant effects. If not, the results of the study may be biased or the findings can be inaccurate. When analyzing or reporting data, the procedures should be followed properly, and researchers should not suppress unfavorable findings when reporting their data to the public in journals and so forth. There are 3 ways researchers can protect their participants. One is to guarantee their anonymity. Researchers have to do their best to make sure that there's no way to link back specific information about the participant so that people cannot find out who they are. For instance, maybe in a school with a few minority students, if students indicate their race or sex, researchers should do their best to ensure that the information is anonymous, and the general public, when they read the research findings, they cannot identify who those students are. And usually, anonymity is guaranteed when participants send their questionnaire back, or anonymity can be guaranteed when the interviewer leaves the room. And researchers should also guarantee the confidentiality of participants. They should promise to keep information about their participants private, maybe locked in a safe area, and only have certain people have access to those information, those surveys. But sometimes guaranteeing confidentiality can be challenging in cases where domestic violence, family violence, drug use, gang memberships, or any kinds of abuse are involved. In this case, the researcher may be in a dilemma. On one hand, they want to guarantee confidentiality. On the other hand, they may feel that it's their right to report for the safety, the well-being of that person, their research subjects. And it can be very challenging to guarantee confidentiality in places where people are in close-knitted relationship with one another. And researchers should not use deception. They should not intentionally mislead participants. They should be honest about their research purposes. They should not omit information about the real purpose of research. And researchers can protect participants by having them sign a document we call the informed consent. And researchers, when asked the participants to sign the informed consent form, they should tell participants that they are free to leave at any time of the study for whatever reason. They should not be coerced to stay or made obligated to stay. However, sometimes, like what we said before, it may not be okay to reveal the real purpose of the study. But according to some research methods textbooks, not revealing the real purpose of the study may be okay if there's no harm incurred on the participants. For instance, researchers telling subjects that they are studying the communication behaviors of physicians, when actually they are studying their decision-making styles. And sometimes, the real purpose of the study is not revealed when a welfare agency is looking for ways to improve the living conditions of welfare recipients. However, researchers still need to justify to the IRB, stating that why deception is necessary for the study and steps they are going to take to safeguard the participants. Researchers should be completely honest when they report their findings. They should disclose the pitfalls or shortcomings associated with their research or the research process. There are two famous examples here. At one point, a company tries to market steroids to baseball players. They claim that the use of steroids can enhance muscle strength and endurance among athletes, but they neglect to disclose the complications and side effects. So guess what? Maybe some baseball players, when they use these steroids, they develop some side effects, and eventually the case made the news. Another example would be the GBL estrogen. A company is trying to market the GBL estrogen. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name. They claim that the GBL estrogen can cure or prolong menopause. However, they lack proper research controls in their lab. When they develop or test the GBL estrogen, they only include high-income, healthy, normal-weight women in their study, in their lab. But they market their product to all women, women of all income groups, women of all health statuses, all health conditions, women of all weight categories. So guess what happens when some women bought their product? Some of these women develop complications like vomiting, aggression, and seizure. Another example is from the Consumer Reporting Bureau. Sometimes when we go to this website, we don't know how much people, how many percentage of the people actually responded to the Consumer Union survey. So, because of that, we cannot gauge the review of the products, whether it's good or it's bad. because the response rates are not disclosed. So as you can see, when researchers are not truthful in disclosing the findings, they don't tell people the shortcomings. Sometimes the consumers or even the general audience can be misled. They can be confused. Because of that, the Institutional Review Board, the IRB, is set up to protect research participants or to protect their rights. And before a research can be conducted, the proposal has to be submitted to the IRB. They review this research proposal to make sure that they comply with ethical standards.